Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Alex. I'm an artist who likes to paint, draw, build, design, animate, and overall just explore art in general. I enjoy starting with a simple idea and over time seeing it evolve into its final realized form. In this video, I will be talking about that process, specifically with the animated visualizer short film that I made for the song Close to You by Frank Ocean. Primarily, I want to focus on the characters, plot details, song lyrics, and the different influences that inspired me while creating this project. When it comes to ideas, I like to think of them like ingredients in a stew. A bunch of seemingly random foods, oils, and seasonings mixed in a bowl of hot water and broth that can turn into one of the best things you've ever tasted. In this scenario, my stew is the animation, and my influences that I'll discuss are my ingredients. Some that may seem random, some I didn't even know I put there initially, but all coming together in the end. The first idea added to the pot was Frank Ocean. I've talked in the past about my semi-recent love and appreciation for his music and the influences that it's had on me. For some time, I knew I wanted to make some sort of visual based on one of his songs, but at the time, I didn't know which one to choose specifically. This desire to make something eventually led me to build my Nostalgia Ultra-inspired MP3 player, focusing on how looking into the past can inspire you and create a path for your future and growth. Sometime after completing the MP3 player project, I was talking with some people. Now, I don't remember the exact context of the conversation, but eventually somebody said the line, "Sometimes when someone dyes their hair blonde and swims in a pool, it can turn green." When I first heard that, I felt my world stop. Blonde, green, hair, Frank, ocean, sea, water, pool. I knew I had something, an ingredient for the pot, but I didn't quite know exactly what I was trying to make. Eventually, I find myself listening to the album Blonde, again, specifically the song Close to You. I get a bit curious about the sample that Frank uses in the song, and I start doing some research. I find out that in 1972, Stevie Wonder performed on the David Frost Show, demonstrating the modulating voice device called the Talkbox. He sang his cover of the song They Long to Be Close to You by the Carpenters, combined with Never Can Say Goodbye by the Jackson 5. At this point, I'm listening to both versions of the song on repeat, resonating with the feeling of nostalgia in a different way, and seeing how looking into the past can leave you feeling lonely, blinded, and changed for the worse. Sometime after, I'm driving home, listening to Frank's version of the song again, and I get to a stoplight. As I'm waiting, I feel a growing pressure in the back of my head, and soon, my vision is completely taken over as I start to see flashing images that would soon become the building blocks for my animation. As soon as I get home, I write down everything that I saw, the outline of the version of the story that I plan to tell. As I was about to do some character sketching, translating Frank into my style, I paused for a moment. Initially, I wanted to animate Frank playing out the lyrics that he sings in the song, but after thinking it over, it didn't resonate with me, and I thought it would be more interesting to play into the themes of the album a bit more. If you haven't noticed, the official name for the album is spelled Blonde with an E, but on the album cover, it's spelled Blonde without an E. These variations in spelling can refer to the French roots of the word, where blonde E is feminine and blonde no E is masculine. This plays into the themes of duality and ambiguity of gender identity and perspectives throughout the album, but they are all connected by a shared experience of emotional turmoil. With that information, I thought it would be more interesting to have Frank, having masculine presenting vocals, narrate the events for a female character. Once I had that hashed out, I got into my character design. At the time, I'd been rewatching films like Akira, Princess Mononoke, and Paprika, and I felt inspired to try and slightly add some visual references to my project. I've always been a big fan of the techniques used in 2D animation, specifically the contrast between cel-shaded characters and the hand-painted backgrounds layered beneath them. When it came to my character design, I wanted them to have that same cel-shaded look, but I had no intention of painting any backgrounds for this project. But I still wanted to achieve the contrast between character and the environment that they were set in. So I tweaked and refined some 3D textures that I had done in the past and cleaned them up until I feel like I got the look I wanted to achieve. For each shot of animation, I wanted to make sure that while I was telling my own story, that I was still trying to tie back to the lyrics of the song, either in theme description or visual description. We begin with hearing the murky audio of Stevie Wonder's sample, and we see our two main characters sitting on a cliff, looking over the ocean during a sunset, taking in its natural beauty and embracing each other's company. That is then cut by a flash of one of our characters sitting alone at the pool. This flash is also made to match the audio glitch motif that is present throughout the song and the rest of the animation. From the start, I wanted to set the base and how comforting focusing on the past can feel, and in contrast, how neglecting the present can leave you alone and cold. I wanted to have the warm orange sunset refer to the colors of Frank Ocean's past albums, Nostalgia Ultra and Channel Orange, with the inverse of that representing the cold pool environment, with blue being on the opposite side of the color spectrum to orange. I also wanted to start to lay the groundwork for the theme of natural versus synthetic. In this project, I had never animated water to this extent, so it was a big undertaking to make it look right, and then to make it work the way that I wanted. The main thing I wanted to get right was to have each body of water feel different. Seeing the natural waves of the ocean, the reflection of the sun glimmering on the surface, compared to the synthetic light emitting from the pool, with movements that seem almost calculated. This goes into our next two shots. First, our main character dyeing her hair in the bathroom with a somber look on her face, going into the visuals of a single hand illuminated in the dark, slowly met by another, where they begin to hold each other, embrace, and glow. At peak brightness, we match the audio glitch motif with a flash from the two hands holding to the single hand gripping the cold sink handle. This is spliced with the lyrics,
I'll be honest, I wasn't devastated, but you could've held my hand through this, baby.
Frank's lyrics illustrate him trying to refute the claim that the relationship being done is not a big deal to him, but clearly it means a lot, enough for him to write a song about it. I wanted to visualize this with our character cutting and dyeing her hair in response to her breakup situation, with the memory of holding her hand with her past partner being so coated in nostalgia, so strong that it looks and feels like magic compared to her present reality. That magical glowing effect is reference to Stevie Wonder's cover of the song, They Long to Be Close to You and Never Can Say Goodbye, when he sings the lyrics, this all ties together the glamour effect that experiencing and reminiscing on love can have on your perception. In the shot of her hand turning on the sink, I wanted to add some mismatched colored nails, mainly because at the time I was watching the first season of the show, Dexter, and one of the main murder victims in the show, spoiler alert, has a similar nail pattern of mismatched nails. Initially, I added it just for fun, but I feel as though it can also be viewed as the death of this version of our main character, a death of her past self. The next line of lyrics state,
In my mind, underneath waters.
I imagine this as jets or streams of water running down your face, a shield or a mask for the tears. Luckily, this matches up perfectly with the shot of her washing her hair dye out in the sink.
I run my hands through what's left, but we're getting older, baby. Don't have much longer, baby.
We see her hands run through her newly blonde hair, looking at the pieces that have fallen off into her palm, and then we pan to her eyes, seeing a bit of worry and contemplation. These set of lyrics emphasize reflection on the time that ran out for Frank and his relationship. I wanted to translate this as the fleeting time our character has with this version of herself. Her hair is brittle, easily coming out in her hand, barely holding on to its original curl pattern, but also the fleeting memory of what once was with her past relationship. And even though she stands in front of the mirror, her hair shows a truer reflection.
Why am I preaching? It's quiet to this atheist.
These lyrics are paired with seeing her one last attempt at connecting or trying to connect with her past partner, trying to convince him to go for a drive and stop by the pool, pouring her heart out into this text message, only to be met with a minimal response. Just let it go, please. The more she does seems to pull her farther away from the happiness and connection that she is striving to achieve. Preaching, begging to someone who doesn't believe in what she does. And the response, in its minimalism, shocks her to the point of having to mentally jump back to that feeling she's been chasing. One detail in the scene that I think is worthy of pointing out is that we can see the contact name of the male character, her ex, Lonnie. I said this before, but I didn't want Frank Ocean to be the main character of this story, at least visually, but I still wanted to reference him in some way. Frank Ocean's original stage name was Lonnie Bro, Lonnie being the nickname for Lionel, the name of his grandfather.
Just like mine, versions of these belong to you.
Frank reflects on his memories of his ex, their moments together, and how they could potentially see the same things differently. I wanted to visualize the moment that had been the driving force for our female character's actions. She looks out over the cliff, taking in the vast view, excited for what is to come. But you can see on his face, not excitement, but concern about what she may have in mind, but still letting a smile slip for her. We then flash from her and Lonnie to her alone, at the pool, beaming blue light on her face, the memory fading. It used to be enough to keep her warm, but now it only emphasizes her present loneliness. As she approaches the end of the diving board, we hear,
After a while, they're keeping me close to you.
we flash back to the moment of her and Lonnie jumping off the cliff, and right before impact, we flash again to her hitting the surface of the water. This is the moment, what she has been chasing, hoping that she can recreate a time she shared with Lonnie, but the closest she can get is a pale imitation. At the beginning of the shot, if we look close, we can see on her right shoulder, she has a tattoo. This tattoo spells out the name Anne, with an arrow going through the middle. I'll explain the reasoning for her name a bit later. Maybe some of you have already guessed it. Our last sequence sees Anne coming out of the pool, sitting on the edge, and feeling her hair one last time, only to see it has changed, going from blonde to green after mixing with the chlorine in the pool, and in the process, also losing its curl pattern, all for chasing something that has since been long gone. All the ingredients are in the stew, it's done. You'll learn more about it and all of the main ingredients and seasonings, but you taste something familiar, and you can't quite put your finger on it. The first secret ingredient or special reference was the inspiration behind Anne's name. It comes from a somewhat similar story of a girl trying to attain beauty in the eyes of other people, who goes on to dye her hair but ends up with a result she did not expect. I realized I was telling a story very similar to the one of Anne Shirley, the main character of Anne of Green Gables. This is a show that would come on PBS in a book series that was in my house as a kid. The main plot point that I drew similarities to was that Anne wanted to get rid of her red hair and dye it black to be seen as more beautiful. But because she bought cheap hair dye, it ended up turning green, forcing her to cut the hair off altogether. In my version, Anne starts the same with red hair, but cuts it and dyes it blonde, not only to be seen as beautiful, but to be seen more like Lonnie, who also has blonde hair. In the end, it also turns green, not because of any cheap hair dye, but because of her cheap attempt to recreate the past. The last influence was one that I didn't realize was there until I actually finished the final animation. I noticed the unconscious similarities in the story that I drew from another movie that I had watched recently, called Chungking Express, directed by Wong Kar-wai. I won't talk about the whole movie because you should go watch it, but only the scenes that I feel parallel my own. The first scene is where our main character, Hei-Chi-Woo, is sitting in his apartment, eating a can of pineapple. He's only eating these pineapples because his girlfriend broke up with him on April 1st. Initially, he takes it as a joke. So, to humor the situation, he eats a can of pineapples, his ex-girlfriend's favorite fruit. He eats these every day, a can with the expiration date of May 1st, also his birthday, giving him 30 days to wait for her to come back, or their love would expire, just like the fruit. Aside from the clear visual comparison between both scenes in lighting, color, setting, and framing, we also see that both characters are doing something to themselves in hopes that their past partner will come back, eating pineapples the color yellow, or dyeing their hair a yellowish blonde. The next scene that I see similarities to takes place later on in the film. Hei-Chi-Woo goes out running in the rain, a blue-tinted environment, running to the point of exhaustion, draining his body of any fluids so that he won't be able to produce any tears. Similar to Anne going to the pool, with both of them seeking comfort but ending up soaking wet and alone. We see that chasing the past can lead you to becoming a version of yourself that you do not recognize, and doing things to fill a void that can only be filled by moving forward. So that is my animated visualizer or short film for Frank Ocean's song Close to You. It's a big stew of influences and ideas all mixed together. Going over this again brings a new awareness to the evolution that art can have. I, inspired by Frank, who was inspired by Stevie, who was inspired by the Jackson 5 and the Carpenters, not necessarily creating anything entirely new, but evolving something and making it their own. If you have made it this far, thank you for watching and listening. I really do appreciate and hope you enjoyed my stew. And I appreciate it so much that I will give you something in return. If you noticed, there's a decent gap in time between when this video comes out and the animation I am talking about. That is due to me taking some time to reflect and appreciate all the other projects I had released back to back, and give me time to prepare for the projects that I have lined up. In this case, one I've been working on for quite some time. So here is a look at my upcoming short film.